And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
Well, John, there are many ways that members of the public control the LA City Council. Some of them like to go up and hurl insult after insult and racial epithets and curse words at the members of the City Council. And some of them do it a little simpler by signing up with a very, very, very funny, phony name for public comment, whether they speak or not. And we've heard this in the past.
I'm going to call up the names who have signed up to speak on items 10 and 11 first. That would be Candido, Jenna, Talia, and Herman, please.
Here's the latest one.
I will call up more names to go ahead and speak. Tamara Harris, Dwayne Grubert, Mike Small, Jason Bandito.
Even though it's a name, I had to bleep the middle name of that person.
How long do you think they're going to let these meetings go on like this before they figure out that you can't actually conduct any business if it just becomes...
Well, they're
big crank yankers.
They're caught between a rock and a hard place because every single time they try to limit the insane public comment from the gadflies, they get sued by the ACLU.
I will call up more names to go ahead and speak. Tamara Harris, Dwayne Grubert, Mike Small, Jason Bandito.
What are you going to do?
One more time.
I will call up more names to go ahead and speak. Tamara Harris, Dwayne Grubert, Mike Small, Jason Bandito.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Well, as you just heard in our interview with the armed liberal Mark Danziger, or in our interviews with any number of people who are experts on California politics and subjects, or any of the stories that Randy and I talk about ourselves, one constant theme that you hear on this program, and really on the news all over, is that the insurance industry in California is a complete mess. People are being dropped from their policies. Companies are moving out of state entirely. And the elected officials in Sacramento, in the state legislature, in the governor's office, they don't really seem to know what to do about it. They kick it over to the insurance commissioner, and we have what we have. As a result, people are pulling their hair out. You've seen a number of news stories about this problem that homeowners are facing here in California, where they've reached out to the insurance commissioner's office, and many of them can't get a phone call returned. It's not just homeowners in California that are met with silence from the insurance commissioner's office. So is the news media. We have invited the insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara, on this program any number of times. They don't even respond to our requests. Other shops in town have experienced the same thing. In fact, one television station in the Bay Area did a story about how impossible it is to get a hold of anyone there.
And at that point, he had time for a Zoom.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
And that's where we got that. Well, now Ricardo Lara did a sit-down with the Los Angeles Times where he has proclaimed that everything with the insurance industry is fine, he's got it covered, and criticism of him is based on racism and homophobia.
We have played you lots and lots and lots of sound of the original California Insurance Commissioner, Congressman John Garamendi, going after Ricardo Lara.
Get off your butt and do your job.
That literally is about Ricardo Lara. He has said things like Ricardo Lara's job is to hold companies accountable, and he seems to be doing the exact opposite and is giving the companies whatever they want, which if you've looked at the deal that Ricardo Lara gave the insurance companies to coax them back to this market is fairly true. Ricardo Lara, responding to that, told the LA Times that pressuring insurers would not help, adding, quite honestly, this is not going to be the first or last time that I get white-splained on how to do my job.
Whoa!
Excuse me. Let me get the quote more accurately. This is not the first or last time that I get white mansplained on how to do my job.
White mansplained. Now, you know who that's directed at.
John Garamendi.
Of course.
Get off your butt and do your job.
John Garamendi, as you mentioned, a former insurance commissioner, a former lieutenant governor of California, currently a longtime member of Congress representing a district in the Bay Area, a Democrat, by the way, a Democrat in good standing within the Democratic Party. He is close to leadership in Washington, D.C., and Ricardo Lara just took aim at him and called the man a racist.
It's white mansplaining by the person who used to do that job and did it better than him, saying, hey, you're not doing your job. It seems like you're in the pocket of the insurance company.
And Garamendi didn't criticize him in a one-off. He's been doing it pretty consistently.
I think we have played 4 or 5 different raps in the last few months of people, of John Garamendi specifically, doing interviews to go after Ricardo Lara because he sees what's happening.
And it's not just alleging that John Garamendi was white mansplaining to him. He also alleged, Randy, that there was a hint of homophobia.
Where?
He said it was homophobia.
Where did that happen in the story? I don't see that.
All right, let me look it up here.
This is what happens when you skim a story and say, Randy, you read the quotes. There is one quote from Ricardo Lara in this story written by Joel Pollack.
All right, let me see.
What you might be referring to is the story saying that Ricardo Lara refers to himself as the first openly gay person to ever be elected to statewide office in California history. But I don't think, at least in this, Ricardo Lara said anything about John Garamendi going after his sexuality. Although you could definitely make something out of white mansplained instead of just white-splained.
Here is how it was described, and we're referring to a Breitbart article that found that particular quote in an LA Times article, and they did their own story about it. They said, quote, the reference to race and gender is part of a pattern in Lara's political rhetoric. He advertises himself as being, quote, the first openly gay person to ever be elected to statewide office in California history, end quote. So that's where that came from. But this is a shot across the bow at John Garamendi. This is Ricardo Lara essentially lashing out at a fellow Democrat because he is upset that he's being criticized inside the tent. It's one thing for a Democrat to be criticized by Republicans. In a state like California, from his point of view, that doesn't really matter because there aren't enough Republicans to boot him from office. He's also received a lot of criticism from the media. The media has been going after him for years, long before the insurance crisis really became an above-the-fold story. He has been criticized by various publications, including the San Diego Union Tribune and Politico, because he promised when he first ran for office for insurance commissioner that he wouldn't accept money from the insurance industry. That's the common practice for insurance commissioners in California. He said he would adopt that. As it turns out, he was accepting not just money from the insurance industry, but a lot of it. He also got caught paying for his rent in Sacramento with a credit card that belonged to the California Department of Insurance. And when he was called out on it, he said, if I was traveling and I was renting hotel rooms, the department would pay for it. What's the difference?
I didn't even know you could pay your rent with a credit card. Think of all the Amex points.
Yeah, no kidding. He never has to pay for a plane ticket the rest of his life. I guess because he came from the state legislature where you had to maintain a residence in your district and then you had to be in Sacramento, they are given a stipend for lodging when they're in Sacramento. But if you're a statewide constitutional office holder, you don't have to maintain 2 residences. So I guess the assumption is that you pay for your rent based on the money that you get from your salary. Or I guess you could pay for it with whatever money you have in the bank, or if your spouse has a job, your spouse could pay the rent. But you don't have to maintain 2 residences. But the implication was that he maintains one in Southern California and one in Sacramento, and he feels that the taxpayers should have to pay for his home in Sacramento, so he just paid the rent with a state credit card.
And he makes way more than members of the Assembly or State Senate. He makes, as California Insurance Commissioner, almost $200,000 a year, which is still less than members of the LA City Council.
And again, he doesn't have to maintain 2 residences. He chooses to maintain 2 residences. But here's my theory on why he's doing this. He wants other Democrats in California to know that he wants them to circle the wagons. He wants them to start defending him publicly. Because Democrats right now in California are aware that we're in crisis, severe crisis right now with the insurance industry. That industry is collapsing right now in the state right before our eyes. And they're just letting him dangle. They're just letting him twist in the wind as he attempts to try to take the heat off him and off his office and make it seem like he's on top of it and seem like he's doing something about it. But you notice when they run these stories about Ricardo Lara, no elected Democrats are volunteering themselves to go out and defend him.
How could they? What exactly has he done to make this crisis better?
No, it's an argument that makes no sense, but it's the same crowd that defends the bullet train. So what do you want me to tell you? If you're willing to defend that, then by God, you can defend Ricardo Lara. And he's putting the word out by turning this into a racial issue that he wants Democrats to come out and defend him. Otherwise, the implication is they're willing to allow a white Democrat to do no what inside the tent as long as it's on a brown Democrat. That's what he's saying. And he's starting to lash out at members of his own party. Now, Ricardo Lara is in a weird predicament right now because while he is the elected insurance commissioner, he's termed out. At the end of this term, he can't run for re-election. If he could run for re-election, I do not believe he would win. I think that that is an office that a Republican could win if Ricardo Lara is the Democratic candidate. But Ricardo Lara is now going to have to try to find another office to run for. He is now a free agent. And typically what happens is if you're the cream of the crop in the state legislature and you get termed out, you move up to one of the statewide constitutional offices or to Congress. That's the next step for them. And if you survive 2 terms, then you move up the food chain again. And he was expecting to become lieutenant governor or an LA County supervisor. He thought that there were big things in his future. And now that the only attention that he generates is negative, if you have the choice between a Democrat with no baggage and a Democrat with more baggage than Southwest Airlines, which one are you going to choose? Because at this point, he doesn't have to worry about losing to a Republican. He has to worry about losing to another Democrat. And if the Democrats are starting to attack him and his performance, that could potentially be fatal to his career as a politician in the state of California. So now he's decided that he's going to do what Gavin has been doing with the bullet train and with homelessness, and he's just going to declare victory. He's going to say, there is no insurance crisis. There was a problem, and I solved it, and you have me to thank for it, and it's time to move on. And you know what? I could see the Democratic Party in California signing on to that. I could see them just straight up denying reality and being of the belief that in a one-party state, it doesn't matter. So my insurance policy just canceled, and the company that used to insure me is moving out of state. What are you going to do about that, Mr. Assemblyman? Well, have you heard about abortion? That's going to be the response. And so Ricardo Lara is making a strategic move here that if the public in California just simply doesn't care about the problems facing the state, that they're so ginned up about national issues, then his competence or his failure is not relevant. So stop talking about it. Stop giving him advice. Stop highlighting the fact that he screwed up. If you stop talking about it, we'll just declare victory and I can move on to my next job. That's what he is signaling to all of his colleagues in politics, in Democratic politics in California. It's a bold move because he's going after one of the most senior Democrats in California. And you call someone a racist, that's going from 0 to 100 real fast. And I think that part of what's going on with him is he comes from a world, that legislature, and the generation of Democratic Party politics that he came from, where throwing those words around is so cavalier, they don't think anything of it. He's essentially just saying that John Garamendi is being bad. But he doesn't know how to say that, so he says that John Garamendi's a racist. Because to him, that word has no meaning anymore, so let's just call him a racist instead of calling him bad. Well, if you're John Garamendi, who's a generation older than Ricardo Lara, my guess is you're not going to sit back and take that. My bet, Randy, is that John Garamendi is going to return fire.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. In fact, we should try to book him on the show to see if he can do it here.
Get off your butt and do your job.
That would be delicious.
Let's see if we can do that. Because if there's any contribution that we can make to this story, we certainly can't fix the crisis, so take that off the table. But if we can just stir that pot a little bit, we'll be doing God's work.
It is what you're known best for.
That's right. I don't know how to cook, but I sure can stir a pot. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, with the end of the show about a half hour away, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can do a Google on the YouTube or get that handy-dandy KABC app. Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. It's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station and download all the podcasts, like all the times that people prank the LA City Council with crap like this.
I will call up more names to go ahead and speak. Tamara Harris, Dwayne Grubert, Mike Small, Jason Bandito.
That was quite a meeting today.
You know, I thought I've heard them all. Of all the names that people can do that with, that one was new to me.
I haven't heard that one before either.
Such a great last name, Ox.
Let's go to Robert in San Pedro. Robert, hello.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen. Ricardo Lara is now in Costa Rica with his husband, and he's going to probably have one of those DEI operations to try to hide his identity. And I'm not the brightest bulb in the chandelier, but I'm willing to bet that's where he's going to go. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir.
I didn't know they were called DEI operations. What exactly is he diversifying about himself?
I don't know. If he's in Costa Rica, that's a whole different thing.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Pura vida, Lara. Pura vida.
Let's go to Ray in Redondo Beach. Ray, hello.
Hi. What I found is whenever politicians use the word crisis, it's not what it really is. Housing affordability crisis. Well, if the houses are selling, then clearly people can afford them. The insurance crisis is not an insurance crisis. It's mismanagement of the state, which is causing insurance problems. So the real crisis is California isn't doing what they should be doing, like getting rid of the brush, reducing things that cause the fires and makes the fires worse. And they're not solving that, and that's why the insurance companies want to leave.
If we had a governor who demanded action, you're 100% right. We could fix this lickety-split. Just think about this for a moment. The state is responsible for regulating the utilities. If all of a sudden the state started leaning on the utilities to fix their faulty equipment and did so in a severe way, you could fix that problem pretty quickly. And the state also could start leaning on these local governments to bust up the homeless encampments because they're another cause of multiple fires. If they did that, along with clearing brush, I don't think we'd have a crisis with the insurance industry. I think it would go back to the way it used to be.
You're right. And if they fix the root cause of the problems, then the insurance companies are fine. But, I mean, I get it with the insurance companies. They're going like, they're not taking care of the land. Like when you buy a property in these areas, they tell you to clear the brush around your property. They tell you to do the things to reduce risk. And if people aren't doing them, and that's the problem. And, but the government's not doing that. And so that's what's ultimately creating the problems.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Now, Randy, does Ricardo Lara have a response to that conversation?
I'm very kind of sketchy.
That's what I thought. And right now it's time to open up the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And Randy, today's edition takes us to Eagle Rock,
where you have a jackass with a stolen car crashing into a smoke shop.
Now, when you say stolen car, do you mean stolen Kia?
I don't. I mean stolen Hyundai.
It's not Mary-Kate Olsen, it's Ashley.
Let's not forget, Hyundai has the exact same defect as the Kia, where the TikTokers found out that you could pretty much hack these things with a USB drive. For more on the Eagle Rock Smoke Shop Smash and Grab, here's ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Shocking surveillance video showing a car crash right into a smoke shop in Eagle Rock before burglars rush in. I'm Joey Rand.
I'm Michelle.
I still want to know who is buying the aftermarket cigarettes.
There's got to be some kind of economy that's going on that we're unaware of.
Is this where the homeless go to buy their cigarettes? Maybe in like MacArthur Park?
I guess it's possible.
I'm Joey Rand.
I'm Michelle Fisher. It's the second crime like this.
See, those damn retailers, they want to sell you 12 at a time. But if you go onto the streets of L.A., the stolen cigarettes, they'll sell you one a pop.
Oh, it's like going to the Costco Business Center. You can just get exactly what you want.
I'm Joey Rand.
I'm Michelle Fisher. It's the second crime like this in the past few days in the area. Eyewitness News reporter Tim Caputo joins us live in Eagle Rock with more on the new video and the search for the burglars tonight. Tim?
Boy, a spike in smash and grabs just a few weeks after Isabel took over that district. Huh?
Hard to believe, isn't it?
Well, Joy, Michelle, you see behind me, the front of this business has since been boarded up. At this point, unclear just how much product or cash was stolen from this store here behind me. That's something investigators are looking into, and whether or not this crime is related to a similar incident that happened just up the road from here.
I mean, it sounds like it.
I love when they say when there's crimes that are totally identical in the same neighborhood. We don't know if there's any connection between the crimes, but we're working on it.
Well, sometimes these crimes are so common, everybody's doing it. Whoa!
How often do we do a story in the Crime Blotter where there's an explosion?
If they were trying to be discreet, it was a deafening failure. The noisy
You can just hear how much the damage that costs.
Well, if it's not your car, what do you care?
You know, when we talk about all the things that are reasons why the insurers pull out of California, how about business liability insurance and insurance to pay for broken doors thanks to stolen Kias and Hyundais?
If you're Kia at this point, why don't you just acknowledge that your cars are battering rams?
Just kind of lean into it, steer into that skid, as they say.
The noisy smash and grab didn't work on the first try, so these masked burglars needed another 2 attempts.
See, the Kia would have done it in one shot.
And, you know, Barbara Ferrer's watching this and saying, well, at least they're worried about spreading COVID.
No, thank you.
Around 6 this morning, when all the stores at this Eagle Rock Business Park were closed, the 4 suspects used a black sedan to take...
This isn't even the middle of the night anymore. 6 a.m.?
Well, if you know nothing's going to happen, why bother waiting until the middle of the night?
Around 6 this morning, when all the stores at this Eagle Rock Business Park were closed, the 4 suspects used a black sedan to take aim at a smoke shop here. Once finally inside, the 4 burglars then grabbed items from the tobacco shop shelves, making several trips to load up another car they came in. They even snatched a...
Boy, it sounds like they were here for quite a while.
Well, the Kia, or in this case, the Hyundai, is the battering ram. And then you have to have another car that you're not going to use as the battering ram that can be the getaway car.
They even snatched the cash register and tossed it in the trunk. They left the crash black sedan behind, and the owner of the building says police told him both cars appear to be stolen.
You don't say.
Another shocker.
Owners of other businesses at Colorado and Eagle Rock Boulevard say they've never seen something like this on this busy stretch.
We've been here for over 30 years, and this crime does not exist.
Does now.
Get used to it. You need to start watching the news in the Bay Area. You'll be up to speed soon enough.
But a mile and a half away, also on Colorado, there was a very similar crime. On Friday, someone drove a car into the front of this cannabis shop and stole items from inside. LAPD says...
See, they can't possibly be the same guys because one of it's for pot and the other one's for tobacco.
At some point, one of these shops is going to have an after-hours security guard that's sitting there that's going to get run over.
LAPD says they're now investigating whether these 2 smash and grabs, less than 2 miles and 2 days apart, are in any way related.
How many stolen cars does this crew have?
How many Hyundais do you got?
Despite this early morning crime...
Aren't we going to get to a point where we've reached critical mass where all of the Hyundais that were susceptible to this defect, and we're talking about thousands of cars, but aren't we going to get to a point at some point where they've used all of them in crash and grabs, they've crashed all of them into convenience stores, and there are no more cars left to do this with?
Well, once you've wrecked a car like that, where you drive it through a building, the insurance company won't even pay to have it repaired. They just say it's totaled, and they just give you a check, and you have to go find a new car. So I would assume you're right. At a certain point, they're just going to exhaust every single one of these cars once each and every one of them is used as a battering ram in the commission of a crime.
So you smoke shops out there, just brace for impact. At some point, they'll run out of cars that'll do this.
Despite this early morning crime, the family that owns the hair salon a few doors down from the tobacco shop say outside the occasional suspicious car parked in these lots, they still feel safe.
There's a lot of more cars parking and living in the car. And so that's where we've been under observation. But it's pretty chill still here, and it's okay to walk around. It's not a bad neighborhood. You can...
Who's revving up behind her?
It sounds like another Hyundai.
You can walk by yourself and you can walk your dog without getting harassed.
Just don't do it at 6 a.m. because the Kia might crash into you.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to be sitting there getting my hair shampooed, knowing that a Kia could be coming through the wall.
So we know there was another security camera right in front of the business facing down, a little bit closer view of those suspects. Unclear if you're able to make out any identifiable features on those thieves because they are covered head to toe. So maybe no surprise, no arrests have been made in this case so far.
What did we tell you about every crime story that we ever do in L.A. County?
No arrests have been made.
So maybe no surprise, no arrests have been made in this case so far, and investigators certainly have their work cut out for them. We're live in Eagle Rock tonight. Tim Caputo, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Their work is cut out for them, and the gate that used to be the door for that smoke shop also is cut out.
Well, the one thing we have going for us to try to prevent these crimes in the future is that each and every one of these criminals should have lung cancer by at least 2030. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Henry in Glendale writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. When taxes increase the price of a pack of cigarettes to at least $7, smokers will jump at the chance to buy them at a discount, even if they're stolen. The thieves can discount the price because they don't have to pay any taxes. And you know what's so funny about that? That's exactly what's going on in the illegal cannabis market.
It's true. The cost of producing a cigarette is not astronomical, just as I would imagine the cost of producing a joint is not astronomical. What makes it expensive is the sin taxes that we dump on these items so that the state benefits. Well, if you do that, fine. You're doing so with the purpose of discouraging people from consuming those products because you think that they're bad for their health. Whatever. We do that with not just cigarettes and marijuana. We do that with sugary soda drinks. We do that with candy. We do that with other pornography, other sin items that exist out there that we would prefer that people not consume. But if you do that, you're making them artificially expensive and you're creating a black market. Well, a black market needs product to move. And if it's easy to get the product by driving a stolen Kia through the wall, then that's what they're going to do. So make no mistake, the state of California, through its taxation policy, is encouraging this behavior.